So I want you to picture this. Imagine waking up one morning, you turn on your radio, and instead of your usual scheduled programming, you just hear this distorted, completely unfamiliar voice cutting through the static. Over the sound of harsh desert wind and the rumble of tank treads, this mysterious young voice is announcing that your entire government has literally just been overthrown overnight. The monarchy has fallen. Well, this is exactly what the people of Libya woke up to in September of 1969. All right, let's dive right in and explore how an obscure, really low-ranking junior officer managed to orchestrate one of the most flawless, bloodless coups in modern history to seize complete control of Libya. Today, we're dissecting the anatomy of this 1969 heist. We'll look at the historical conditions that made it possible and, the sheer tactical audacity it took to actually pull it off. Section 1. A Divided Kingdom. The powder keg of 1960s Libya. To really understand this incredibly swift takeover, we first have to look at the fragile state of post-World War II Libya. This was a nation deeply traumatized by harsh Italian colonization that started way back in 1911. And this wasn't about building a state, right? It was brutal. Massacres, forced displacements, severe poverty. So when Libya finally gained independence in 1951 under King Idris, it was super fragmented. It was essentially held together not by strong institutions, but literally just by the king himself. I mean, in the 1950s, the UN classified Libya as one of the poorest nations on Earth. We're talking an illiteracy rate of over 90%. But then, in 1959, everything changed. They struck oil. The nation was transformed overnight. But here's the catch. That immense wealth, it didn't go to the people. It flowed directly into the pockets of King Idris's inner circle and massive foreign oil companies. And as you can probably guess, this created an extreme class disparity, which is pretty much the ultimate recipe for a revolution. Now, compounding this extreme economic frustration was a massive foreign military presence. Because before the oil really started pumping, King Idris relied heavily on Western powers just to keep the country financially afloat. Just take a look at the massive footprint of these foreign powers here. The U.S. controlled the gigantic Wheelus Air Base near Tripoli, while the UK held the El Adem base near Tobruk. To the younger generation of Libyans, and especially young military officers, these bases were seen as a totally corrupt violation of their national sovereignty. It felt like a humiliating continuation of foreign control. Section 2. The Desert's Son, from a Bedouin tent to the military. So let's meet the mastermind behind this impending explosion, Muammar Gaddafi. He was born in 1942 in a harsh, deeply traditional Bedouin tent near Sirte, raised in an environment utterly devoid of modern technology. But what he was raised on were these fierce, vivid tales of anti-colonial resistance. He grew up listening to the elders recount stories of bloody battles against the Italians, which really cemented this deep-seated suspicion of any foreign or Western influence. And as a teenager, young Gaddafi was absolutely captivated by the radio. Specifically, he was tuning in to the impassioned nationalist broadcasts of Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser. Nasser was out there calling for Arab unity, socialism, and the complete rejection of colonizers. And Gaddafi didn't just listen to this guy, he completely idolized him. This fiery rhetoric fueled Gaddafi's early anti-imperialist protests, which actually got him expelled from school. He wasn't just some quiet student sitting in the back, he was a total agitator from the very beginning. Section 3. The Free Officers, Building a Covert Network. But getting expelled taught him a really valuable lesson. He realized pretty quickly that student protests and street demonstrations, they were never going to be enough to topple a deeply entrenched foreign-backed monarchy. Gaddafi decided that true change required hard power. The only way to reshape Libya was from the inside out, using the military. So he enters the Benghazi Military Academy in 1963 and graduates by 1965. But look at what happens in 1966. He's sent to the UK for a brief training stint, and this first real encounter with the West only hardened his resolve. According to the records, he absolutely despised the experience. He famously refused to even wear the British military uniform, opting for traditional Libyan dress instead. He came back to Libya laser-focused on ending the monarchy, gathering a group of like-minded young men to form the initial core of what he called the Free Officers Movement. And yes, he directly copied that name from Nasser in Egypt. And right here is where Gaddafi's tactical genius really shines. Upon graduation, he didn't just join any random branch of the military. He strategically chose the Signals Corps, Why? Because the signals core is the communications hub. It allowed him to covertly communicate across different military units all over the country. He used this incredible, basically VIP access to build and coordinate his secret revolutionary network, right under the nose of the king's intelligence services. Section 4. The Bloodless Coup, 0 hour, September 1969. So the tension builds up until we hit the summer of 1969. The aging King Idris is actually out of the country. He's traveling between Greece and Turkey for medical treatment. His health is failing, and rumors are totally swirling that he might soon abdicate in favor of his nephew. Basically, the country is in this state of political limbo, creating a massive power vacuum. Gaddafi and his officers know that it is literally now or never, and their plan was stunningly efficient. While the king was away, these young men, who, remember, were mostly just lieutenants, moved in the dead of night. Before the sun even came up, they simply walked in and arrested the senior generals of the royal army while they were fast asleep in their beds. They secured the major military bases in Tripoli and Benghazi, and crucially, they took over the national radio stations. The whole thing was done in a flash, without spilling a single drop of blood. Now, you might be wondering, wait a minute, the United States and United Kingdom had massive, heavily armed bases right there in Libya. Why on earth didn't they intervene to save the king? They could have crushed this uprising of low-level lieutenants instantly. Well, the answer lies in Gaddafi's cold pragmatism. Immediately after seizing power, he secretly sent messages to Washington and London, assuring them that the new regime would completely respect all existing oil agreements. Reassured that the oil would just keep flowing, the Western powers decided to stand down and wait it out. Section 5. The 27-year-old leader. The world reacts to the mastermind. So, with the king deposed, the senior military leadership locked up, and the global superpowers intentionally looking the other way, the people of Libya poured into the streets to celebrate. I mean, they were totally exhausted by the corruption and the foreign dominance. But here is the wildest part of the whole story. As the crowds cheered for the newly declared Libyan Arab Republic, virtually no one in the country, or the world for that matter, actually knew the identity of the person who had just taken over. The absolute shock of the global community hit when the dust finally settled days later. Intelligence agencies, foreign governments, and the Libyan public finally realized that this meticulously planned, perfectly executed overnight heist of an entire nation wasn't the work of some seasoned, battle-hardened general. It was orchestrated by a mere 27-year-old lieutenant. It's just an incredible story of timing, strategy, and sheer nerve. But it leaves us with a pretty profound question as we wrap up this explainer. How exactly does a 27-year-old anti-imperialist who seized power in a bloodless, widely celebrated coup transform into the isolated, eccentric autocrat the world would come to know over the next 4 decades? Because that perfectly executed dawn in 1969, that was just the opening act for a regime that would fundamentally shake global politics for the next 42 years. Thanks for joining me as we explored how Gaddafi seized Libya, and keep questioning the history behind the headlines.